I grew up believing my father was dead. My mother told me he had died in a fire when I was 2 years old, and from that moment on, she never spoke his name again. Not once. For 25 years, I carried that silence like a scar I could never see, but always felt. But then, everything changed. It started with something ordinary. Something so small, so forgettable that I almost laughed at how much power it ended up having over my life. A blood donation. Yeah, that's all it took. One small decision, one quick signature, outside a grocery store in Austin, Texas. I thought I was doing a good deed. 15 minutes of my time to maybe help someone I'd never meet. But what I didn't know was that in giving blood, I was about to uncover a secret buried for decades. A secret that would tear open everything I thought I knew about who I was and who my father really was. My name is Ethan Rowe, and this is how silence turned into truth. Growing up, it was just me and my mom, Clara Rowe. She was strong, the kind of strong that doesn't break no matter how much life tries to bend her. She worked long hours as a nurse, night shifts, doubles, weekends, but somehow she always made it home with a smile. Our apartment was small but warm, the kind of place where you could hear the neighbors arguing through the walls, but where the smell of my mom's coffee made it feel like home. The furniture was old, practical. Every piece told a quiet story of sacrifice, and yet she never made me feel poor. Every birthday, she'd find a way to make it special. A homemade cake, a cheap toy she'd saved up for. Christmas was never about gifts, but about presents. Hers. She gave me love, safety, structure, but behind all that love, there was a wall. A wall built around the name of my father. From as early as I can remember, he was nothing more than a shadow. Mom said he died in a fire when I was 2. And that was that. No photos, no stories, no keepsakes tucked away in a box somewhere. Just a single sharp statement that ended all discussion. He's gone, Ethan. As a kid, I accepted it. As a teenager, I started to hate it. And as an adult, I learned to bury it. But even buried things can whisper. Sometimes when I'd catch my reflection in the mirror, I'd wonder, what part of me came from him? My dark hair, my restless hands that always had to fix something? My need to make sense of things that never quite did? There's a kind of hunger that comes from not knowing who you are. I tried to fill it with work, with friends, with routine. I became a mechanic. It fit me. Machines made sense. They broke, but you could fix them. People weren't like that. Families weren't like that. By 27, I'd built a life that looked steady from the outside. I had my small shop, a few good friends, and a rhythm that kept me from thinking too hard. But silence has a way of seeping through even the loudest days. I remember the night I tried one last time to break through that silence. I was 20. Mom had just come home from a late shift. She looked exhausted, still in her scrubs, her hair pulled back tight. We were sitting at the kitchen table when I asked her quietly, "Why don't we have any photos of Dad?" She froze. Just for a second. Her eyes flickered, something between fear and grief, and then she looked away. "Some things," she said softly, "are better left in the past, Ethan." And that was it. Conversation over. But I never forgot that look in her eyes. It wasn't just sadness, it was something heavier, like guilt or maybe fear. Still, she was my world. I trusted her. I told myself she had her reasons, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Years passed. Life moved on, until one ordinary Saturday, everything changed. I'd gone grocery shopping, like the kind of lazy morning routine that fills an empty weekend. As I loaded the bags into my car, I noticed a big white bus parked near the lot, a mobile blood donation clinic. A banner stretched across the side, 15 minutes can save a life. A volunteer smiled at me, holding out a pamphlet. "Come on, man, it's easy," he said. I hesitated. I'd never donated before, but something about that moment, something small, maybe guilt, maybe curiosity, made me stop. I signed the form, rolled up my sleeve, let them take a little piece of me, not knowing they were about to take a whole lot more. When it was done, I walked out with a sticker that said I gave blood today and a cookie. I thought that was the end of it. A week later, I was under the hood of a pickup at work when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Rowe?" The voice was calm, professional. "This is Dr. Stevens from the Texas Regional Blood Center." Instantly, my stomach tightened. Had they found something? Was I sick? "Your results flagged an anomaly," he said. "Nothing immediately dangerous, but significant." I asked what kind of anomaly. There was a pause. a long one, the kind that tells you someone's picking their words very carefully. "Mr. Rowe," he said, "I can't explain over the phone, but I can give you an address in New York. If you're willing, I think you'll find answers there." "An address? In New York?" I laughed nervously. "I don't know anyone in New York." "Maybe not," he replied, "but your family history does." Those words hit like a lightning strike. Family history. He gave me the address. I scribbled it down on the back of a greasy receipt, my hands trembling. When the call ended, I just stood there in the shop, surrounded by the smell of oil and metal, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath me. That night, I sat across from my mom at our small kitchen table, the same table we'd shared for years, the same one where I'd asked her about Dad. I wanted to show her the note, ask her what she was hiding, but when I looked at her tired face, saw the dark circles under her eyes, I couldn't do it. I was afraid of what she might say, and maybe even more afraid of what she wouldn't. So I said nothing, but silence was no longer comfort. It was a weight pressing down on me. Days passed. I couldn't focus. I made mistakes at work, forgot things I never used to. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the doctor's words. Anomaly, family history, answers in New York. What did that even mean? Was it medical, genetic? Did I have some long-lost relative out there? Or had my entire life been built on a lie? Eventually, curiosity won. I booked a flight to New York. No plan, no clue what I was walking into, just a backpack, and a growing sense that my whole life was about to be rewritten. When I landed, the city felt overwhelming. Cold air, honking taxis, people moving fast enough to blur. I followed the GPS through a maze of streets until I reached the address the doctor had given me. It was a quiet residential neighborhood. Brownstones lined the block, the kind of place that looked peaceful from the outside but carried 1,000 unspoken stories behind every window. I stood there for a long moment, heart pounding, staring at the door. Then I knocked. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. The door swung open, and the man who stood before me nearly dropped his coffee mug. It slipped from his hand, shattered on the floor, and for a heartbeat, everything went silent. He stared at me, eyes wide, mouth trembling, and then, in a voice that cracked with disbelief, he whispered, "My name." In that instant, the air between us changed. It was as if time itself froze. I looked at him, his face, his eyes, and something deep inside me recognized him before my mind could catch up. The lines of his jaw, the curve of his brow, even the way he stood, it was like looking into a mirror, aged 25 years. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Who are you?" I asked. But he didn't answer, he just stared. Finally, his voice broke the silence. "Ethan," he whispered again. You shouldn't be here." That's when I knew. My mother had lied. Whatever she'd buried all those years ago hadn't died in a fire. It had been hidden. And now, standing in that doorway in New York, I could feel the weight of every unspoken truth pressing down on me. The man looked terrified, not of me, but of what my being there meant. He took a step back, motioning me inside, his hands trembling as he tried to speak. But his voice failed. All I could hear was the echo of that first lie. He died in a fire. And now, the man standing in front of me was living proof that my entire life had been built on ashes that never burned. In that moment, 1,000 questions crashed through my mind. Why did my mother hide him? Why did she let me believe he was dead? And what was the anomaly that led me here? What did it reveal about who I really was? The answers were inside that house. I could feel it. But stepping through that door, I knew one thing for certain. Once I did, nothing about my life would ever be the same again. Because sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It breaks everything you thought was real. And in that silence, standing face to face with the man I was told had died decades ago, I realized this wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning. The blood test was just the spark. The fire, the real one, was about to start. Imagine being told your entire life that one of the people who made you, one half of your very existence, was gone forever. Imagine growing up believing that story so deeply that it becomes part of who you are. And then one ordinary day, a small decision, something as simple as donating blood, tears your entire world apart. That's what happened to me. My name is Ethan Rowe, and for 25 years I believed my father was dead. My mother told me he died in a fire when I was 2. She never said his name again, never showed me a picture, never whispered a memory, just silence. and that silence became the background noise of my life. But here's the thing about silence: it's not empty, it's heavy. It hums. It fills the space between what's real and what's missing. And last month, that silence finally broke. It started with something forgettable: a parking lot outside a grocery store in Austin, Texas. I just finished buying groceries when I saw a mobile blood donation bus parked by the exit. A volunteer waved, smiling. 15 minutes of your time can save a life, he said. I hesitated, then thought, why not? Maybe I could do a little good for once. I climbed aboard, signed the forms, and rolled up my sleeve. The nurse was friendly, the needle quick. 10 minutes later, I was walking back to my car with a cookie and a sticker that said I gave blood today. I didn't think twice about it. A week later, everything changed. I was at work under the hood of a pickup truck when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Mr. Rowe, the voice was calm, professional. This is Dr. Stevens from the Texas Regional Blood Center. Immediately, my stomach dropped. I thought maybe they'd found something wrong. Is there a problem? I asked. There's an anomaly in your results, he said. Nothing dangerous to you, but significant. We recommend you come in to discuss it further. What kind of anomaly? I pressed. There was a pause, a heavy one. I can't explain over the phone, he said, but I can give you an address in New York. New York? I laughed nervously. I don't know anyone there. It's related to your family history, he said quietly. That's all I can tell you. Then he read me the address. I scribbled it down on the back of an oil-stained receipt. When the call ended, I just stood there, my heart pounding. Family history? New York? None of it made sense. That night, I sat at the kitchen table across from my mother. I wanted to ask her, beg her to tell me what she knew. But when I saw her tired eyes, the faint tremor in her hands after a long shift, I couldn't. Something inside me told me she already knew, that whatever this was, she'd been keeping it buried for decades. So I stayed silent, but the silence burned hotter than ever before. Days passed, but I couldn't shake it. That address in New York haunted me. I'd take it out of my wallet, stare at it, and imagine all the possibilities. Was it a hospital, a research lab, a distant relative, or something darker? Finally, one night, I broke. I called my mother. She answered on the third ring, her voice soft, weary. Mom, I said, my throat tight, I need to know about Dad. The line went silent. I got a call from the clinic. They gave me an address in New York. Nothing. Then, after what felt like forever, she whispered, Ethan, please don't go. Some doors should stay closed. Her words hit me like a hammer. The same words she'd used years ago when I'd asked about him. The same tone, the same fear. That's exactly why I have to go, I said. I can't live in silence anymore. I can't keep pretending half of me never existed. Her voice broke. You don't understand, she cried. I did everything to protect you. Protect me from what? I demanded. But she didn't answer. Just soft sobs through the phone until I couldn't take it anymore. That's when I knew. She'd never tell me. So I made the choice for both of us. The next morning, I booked a last-minute flight to New York. I packed light, a few clothes, my wallet, my phone, and the folded paper that now felt heavier than anything I owned. When I left my room, my mother was in the kitchen, still in her robe, a mug clutched in her hands. Her eyes were red, her voice shaking. Ethan, please. I have to, Mom. You don't understand what you're walking into, she said. Then tell me, I said, stepping closer. Tell me what I'm walking into. But she couldn't. She just stood there, trembling, tears on her cheeks. I kissed her on the forehead, whispered that I loved her, and walked out the door. She didn't stop me. At the airport, the world felt too normal for what I was doing. People were laughing, eating, scrolling on their phones. I was sitting by a window, staring out at the runway, feeling like I was about to detonate my entire life. When the plane took off, I watched Texas disappear beneath me and felt a strange mix of fear and freedom. I didn't know what I was chasing, only that I couldn't live without finding it. The flight to New York was long. I kept the address in my hand the whole way, 48 Mercer Street, Brooklyn. I looked it up on my phone. It wasn't a hospital, not a clinic, just a normal street. That scared me more than anything, because if this wasn't official, then it was personal. When we landed, the city was alive in a way I'd never experienced. Noisy, relentless, full of movement. It felt like everyone was running towards something while I was walking into the unknown. I checked into a cheap hotel, the kind where the sheets smell like bleach and the heater rattles in the walls. I couldn't sleep. Every creak, every sound outside made my pulse race. By morning, I was done waiting. I followed the directions until I reached Mercer Street. It was quiet, lined with old brick buildings and little shops. Number 48 looked ordinary. A brown door, brass numbers tilted at an angle. But to me, it looked like the heaviest door in the world. I stood there for 10 minutes, frozen. I thought about turning back, flying home, pretending none of this had ever happened. But I couldn't, not after 25 years of silence. So I knocked. Each sound echoed like thunder in my chest. Nothing. Then, footsteps. The door opened, and a man stood there holding a coffee mug. He was older, hair streaked with gray, shoulders still broad but tired. His face stopped me cold. His eyes, dark brown, just like mine. The mug slipped from his hand and shattered against the floor. He stared at me, his lips trembling. "Ethan," he whispered. "My name." He knew my name. "Yes," I managed. "I'm Ethan." The color drained from his face. He grabbed the doorframe like he needed it to stay standing. His eyes filled with tears. "My son," I felt my knees weaken. My breath caught in my throat. My mind screamed that this wasn't real. "You're supposed to be dead," I said. He looked broken, almost pleading. "Please, come inside, let me explain." I hesitated, my fists clenched, my body ready to run. But something in his eyes, something familiar, pulled me in. The apartment was small and cluttered. Books piled on the floor, papers everywhere, the faint smell of old coffee and dust. I sat on a couch while he lowered himself into a chair across from me. For a long time he just stared, tears slipping down his face. Finally he spoke. "My name is Daniel Hale. I'm your father." The words hit me like a blow. "I didn't die in that fire," he said quietly. "I survived, but staying alive wasn't the end, it was the beginning of a nightmare. Back then, I was involved with dangerous people. I made enemies, Ethan. The fire wasn't an accident, it was meant to kill me. When I realized they'd come for me, I knew if I stayed, they'd find your mother. They'd find you." "So you ran?" I snapped. "You disappeared?" "I left to keep you safe," he said, voice breaking. "It was the only way." I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was caving in. "You let me grow up thinking you were dead," I said, trembling. "You let Mom live with that lie. Svaya, do you have any idea what that did to us?" He bowed his head, his hands shaking. "Every day, Ethan. Not a single day passed that I didn't think about you. But if I came back, they would have found you both." I had to make a choice. "You could have written," I shouted. "A letter. Something. Anything." His eyes filled with shame. "You're right. I failed you." The words hung heavy between us. I looked around his small, lonely apartment, the half-empty shelves, the faded curtains, the quiet that felt almost punished. He had been living in hiding, but I couldn't tell if he'd been hiding from danger or from the guilt of what he'd done. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The sound of the city hummed outside the window, distant and unreal. Then he said, almost to himself, "There's more you need to know, Ethan. The fire, your mother, the people I was involved with, it's all connected." My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" I asked. He looked up, his eyes clouded with fear. "Before I left, I thought I could bury it all. But it's not over. They're still out there." And for the first time, I realized the danger he'd run from 25 years ago might have just found me. For 25 years, I lived with a ghost, a name I wasn't allowed to say, a story that was sealed shut before I could ever understand it. My mother told me my father died in a fire when I was 2 years old, and for most of my life, I believed her. I believed every word because she was my mother, because she had to be telling the truth. But the thing about lies is that they burn slow. They don't destroy you all at once. They smolder for years, hidden under the ashes of love and routine, until one day they finally catch fire. I never thought that moment would come from something as ordinary as donating blood. One small act, one drop of kindness. That's what started everything. When the clinic called me a week later, I thought it was just about my results, but the voice on the other end sounded different. Hesitant, nervous. "Mr. Hale," she said, "you may have a relative in our system. A close one." My heart stopped. "A what?" I asked. She gave me an address in Brooklyn, 48 Mercer Street. That's all. No explanation, no name, just an address. For days, I carried that slip of paper everywhere. I'd unfold it, stare at the words, then shove it back in my pocket as if I could burn the temptation away. My whole life had been built around silence. And now a single address was tearing that silence apart. Finally, I broke. I picked up the phone and I called my mother. She answered on the third ring. Her voice was weary, tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. "Mom," I said, "I need to know. I got a call from the clinic. They gave me an address in New York. About Dad." Silence. A silence so deep it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Then she said it, her voice trembling, low, almost terrified. "Ethan, please don't go. Some doors should stay closed." The same words she'd said when I was 12 years old, asking about old family photos, the same tone, the same wall. That was when I knew she was hiding something. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to stop asking. I clenched the phone tighter. "That's exactly why I have to go," I said. "I can't live in silence anymore. I can't keep pretending half of me doesn't exist." She started to cry, soft, sharp, helpless. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I did everything to protect you." "Protect me from what?" I demanded. No answer, just more sobs, raw and broken. And in that silence, I finally understood she was never going to tell me. Whatever truth she carried, it was too heavy to let go. So I made the choice for both of us. I booked a one-way flight to New York. That night, as I packed my bag, every item felt like it carried weight. Clothes, toothbrush, phone charger, and the piece of paper that burned in my wallet like a live coal. I stopped halfway through, sitting on my bed, staring at the bare walls. The photo of my mother and me at my high school graduation hung crookedly. She was smiling, proud. I wondered if she'd known this day would come, the day her silence would finally break. The morning I left, she was standing in the kitchen, robe pulled tight, a coffee mug shaking in her hands. Her eyes were red. She hadn't slept either. "Ethan," she whispered, "please don't go." "I have to," I said. My voice was steady, but inside I was trembling. "You don't understand what you're walking into." "Then tell me, Mom. Tell me what I'm walking into." Her hand dropped. Her lips trembled. "I can't." That was it. The last wall between us fell, not with anger, but with exhaustion. I kissed her cheek, whispered that I loved her, and walked out the door. She didn't try to stop me. At the airport, everything felt both ordinary and surreal. Families hugged, announcements echoed, engines roared, but to me, it all felt like background noise to the storm in my chest. I boarded the plane, gripping the armrest as it lifted off the Texas runway. The lights below grew smaller, like the world I'd always known was fading into memory. Ahead of me was nothing but questions, and the hope that someone, somewhere, held the answers. By the time I landed in New York, the city stretched beneath me like a living thing. Glass towers, rivers of cabs, endless noise. It felt alive. And I felt like a ghost. I checked into a cheap hotel in Brooklyn, the kind where the sheets smell like bleach and the walls are thin enough to hear someone's TV next door. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, tempted to call my mother one last time. But I knew what she'd say. "Don't go. Come home. Some doors should stay closed." So I didn't call. The next morning, I found myself standing on Mercer Street. 48 Mercer. The numbers above the brown door were crooked, brass worn down by years. Nothing about the place screamed secret. Just an ordinary door on an ordinary street. But to me, it was the heaviest door in the world. I stood there for 10 minutes, my heart pounding, my palms sweating, every instinct screamed to toe back, to forget this ever happened. But I couldn't. I thought of my mother's fear, my childhood without a father, the questions I'd buried. I walked across the street, I climbed the steps, I raised my hand, and I knocked. 3 short raps. The sound echoed in my chest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, footsteps. The door opened. A man stood there holding a coffee mug. His hair was streaked with gray, his shoulders broad but slumped with time. His face was older, harder, but the eyes stopped me cold. They were mine. He froze. The mug slipped from his hand, shattering against the concrete. He stared at me, his lips trembling. "Ethan." My name. He knew my name. I could barely breathe. "Yes," I said, my voice cracked. "I'm Ethan." His face went pale. He braced himself against the doorframe, tears welling, and then, in a whisper that shattered the air, he said it. "My son." The words hit me like a thunderclap. The man who was supposed to be dead was alive. "You're supposed to be dead," I said, my voice breaking. He stepped aside, motioning for me to come in. "Please, let me explain." I hesitated. Every muscle in my body screamed to run. But something in his eyes, something between guilt and love, pulled me forward. I stepped inside. The apartment was small, cluttered, books, papers, the faint smell of stale coffee. He sat across from me, silent tears tracing his face. "I'm Daniel Hale," he said finally, voice trembling. "I'm your father." The air between us was electric, filled with years of words unsaid. He took a deep breath. "I didn't die in that fire, Ethan. I survived. But surviving wasn't the end. Back then, I was involved with people I should never have trusted. Dangerous people. The fire wasn't an accident, it was meant to kill me. When it didn't, I realized staying would put you and your mother in danger. So I left. I disappeared. To keep you safe." His words felt like a blade, cutting through years of grief and anger. I thought of my mother working herself to the bone. The nights I lay awake, wishing for a father who'd never come home. "You let me grow up thinking you were dead," I said, my voice shaking. "Do you have any idea what that did to me, what it did to her?" Daniel bowed his head. "Not a day passed that I didn't think about you. But if I came back, they would have found you. I had to make a choice. I chose to protect you, even if it meant you'd hate me. I wanted to scream. But when I looked at him, I didn't see the monster I imagined. I saw a man, broken, haunted, human. You could have told me," I whispered. "You could have written, called, something." He closed his eyes. "You're right. I failed you. I failed both of you, but I'm here now, and I'll answer every question. If you want to walk away after that, I won't stop you." I leaned back, my hands trembling. The fury didn't fade, but beneath it, something shifted. The boy who had grown up half empty finally saw the missing piece flicker into view. We sat in silence, two men bound by blood and 25 years of distance. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of pain, full of possibility. When I left that apartment, the city lights blurred as I walked. My body felt heavy, every step weighted with years of silence. I had met my father, the man who wasn't supposed to exist, and nothing in me would ever be the same. That night, I sat in my hotel room, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. I wanted to hate him, but part of me couldn't. His story didn't erase the pain, but it made sense of it, and that somehow felt like the beginning of healing. The next morning, I called my mother. My voice shook. "Mom," I said, "I met him. Dad's alive." There was a long pause, then a sob, raw, unguarded. "I knew this day would come," she whispered. "You knew?" I said, disbelief flooding me. "Yes," she breathed. "He begged me to keep you safe. He said if he stayed away, they'd never find us." I believed him. I kept his secret because I thought it was the only way to protect you. Her words hit me like stones. "You could have told me," I said softly. "I thought the lie would hurt less than the truth," she said through tears. "I thought if you hated him, you'd stop searching." For the first time, I understood. She hadn't lied out of cruelty. She lied out of fear, out of love. When I returned home, everything felt smaller. The silence that once protected us now felt suffocating. We sat at the same kitchen table where we'd fought so many times. "He told me everything," I said quietly. "About the fire, the danger, why he stayed away." She nodded, eyes wet. "Do you believe him?" I hesitated. "I think I do, but believing doesn't erase the years he missed." She reached for my hand. "I only wanted to spare you the pain." I squeezed her hand. "You gave me everything you could, Mom, but I needed the truth, even if it hurt." And in that moment, the wall that had divided us for decades finally cracked open. Over the next few weeks, I talked to Daniel on the phone. At first, it was awkward, like talking to a stranger who shared your face. But slowly, the conversations deepened. He told me about the years he'd spent hiding, the jobs under false names, the nights he dreamed of coming home. One night, I asked him the question that haunted me most. "Did you ever think about coming back?" His voice broke. "Every day. I watched from afar. I saw your school photos through people I trusted. I saw you grow up, and it tore me apart not to be there." His honesty didn't erase the years, but it began to stitch something inside me that had been torn too long. I realized then, the truth doesn't heal you cleanly. It's messy, it bleeds, but it's real. And real is all I ever wanted. Because for 25 years I lived inside a silence built to protect me. And the day I broke it open, I found pain, betrayal, but also something else, freedom. And now as I look at the photo of my mother and me at graduation, I see both of them there, her silence, his absence. And I finally understand, love doesn't always look like safety. Sometimes it looks like sacrifice. Sometimes it looks like letting go. But I can't help wondering if one lie could last 25 years, what else might still be waiting behind closed doors?